Now, from Atlanta News First, the issues that matter to you. This is On the Record.
I hope she'll show up. She was committed to showing up before and did not show up. And we need to ensure that Lady Justice indeed keeps her blindfold on. In this case, the blindfold was removed for political and personal ambition.
Here you got this committee, got 3 people on this committee running for statewide office. And they're putting out fundraising, says we're going to go after Fani Willis and you need to send me $100. I mean, that's ridiculous.
After months of political gamesmanship and legal arguments, Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis will indeed appear before a special Senate committee that is investigating her now stalled and yet nonetheless historic indictment of Donald Trump and 18 of his Republican allies on charges that they attempted to overturn Georgia's 2020 presidential election, and that is one of the main topics and stories we're following on this edition of On the Record with Atlanta News First. Today is Wednesday, December 10th. I'm Tim Darnell, joined as always by the host of On the Record with Atlanta News First, airing every Sunday at 11 a.m., Rick Fulbaum. Rick, we heard at the top of our stream today a couple of sound bites, one of whom is from former Georgia Governor Roy Barnes, who appeared yesterday before the Georgia Supreme Court, where he is urging the court to dismiss one of its 2 subpoenas for Fulton County DA Fani Willis. This is a committee that the former governor said is pretty much dominated by a number of Republicans who are running for higher statewide office in 2026. He is arguing that the subpoena is moot. We heard opposing arguments yesterday, but if you were watching the stream as I was, if there is a sharper legal mind than former Georgia Governor Roy Barnes, I haven't seen it. He really made a number of very masterful arguments, and we'll see what the Supreme Court decides. But as it stands right now, Fulton County DA Fani Willis will appear before that Senate Special Committee on Investigations on December 17th. Take us from where we are right now.
So this is a Senate subcommittee here that has been wanting to question Fulton County DA Fani Willis under oath, to ask her questions about her investigation, which, as you mentioned, has now been dismissed. We learned that recently. So this is all to do with her conduct during the investigation and the way that she carried out her duties as Fulton County DA. We now know that she hired as the lead prosecutor in that case someone with whom she had a romantic relationship. And so that's one of the things that the state senators want to get to the bottom of. She has been fighting the subpoena, saying that the state senators cannot compel a district attorney to come in and testify under oath. Sort of a power struggle that they feel she and her legal team, including former Governor Roy Barnes, believe is really unconstitutional, that she should not be compelled to testify. So there was that first subpoena, and then there was a second subpoena that was issued more recently. And that is really the crux of what the Supreme Court justices, the state Supreme Court justices, were hearing. And there was an argument over whether that first subpoena was moot. The attorney representing the committee that wants to investigate and interrogate DA Willis said that it is not moot, that first subpoena should remain in place, but acknowledge that, yes, we do know that Fani Willis has now agreed to testify. That was the surprise. That was really the headline of the hearings yesterday, that she would agree to testify voluntarily. They said, well, let's see how that goes before we decide whether or not we want to try to enforce that original subpoena. But in the meantime, we're looking at a potential spectacle here of of a sitting DA being forced to come in and testify in front of a group of mostly Republican lawmakers who are sitting on a committee who are really, their intention, according to Roy Barnes, is to embarrass and humiliate DA Willis, to put her in a position where she has to discuss, her judgment, the calls that she made, the decisions that she made during the run-up to the investigation into President Trump and the 2020 election results. So we'll see. That hearing is going to take place, I believe, behind closed doors on the 17th. She will testify. We'll see if the Republicans on the committee are satisfied with the testimony that she provides them with. She has also agreed to hand over certain documents that the committee has asked for. She'll be doing that as well. So we'll see. It'll be a big day. It probably will take place off camera, but we will certainly hear a lot about how that goes down, both from the Republicans who are on this subcommittee and also perhaps even from Fani Willis herself.
This is a committee that has a majority of Republicans on it, as does the entire General Assembly. So therefore, your committees are always going to be majority-minority. But it is interesting what the former governor said, and something that we have reported on extensively here on AtlantaNewsFirst.com, that the committee is pretty much dominated by Republicans who are seeking higher office next year. The committee chair, State Senator Bill Calsert, is running for Attorney General. There are 3 candidates who are also running for Lieutenant Governor. So this is, you can honestly make the case that this is nothing but a political battle to perhaps score some points against the Democratic minority here in Georgia, or the Democratic minority in the State General Assembly, and as well as Fulton County DA Fani Willis.
I mean, politics under the Gold Dome, go figure. I mean, that, of course, is really going to be the underlying motivation behind most things that happen in the state legislature. And so, yes, you mentioned all of those Republicans who are on this committee who have declared their intentions to run for various offices in next year's elections. And so are they just looking for an opportunity to do some political grandstanding? Of course they are, and I don't know that there are too many people surprised by that.
Well, this is on the record with Atlanta News First for Wednesday, December 10th, where we talk local, state, and national politics. The other really national political issue that we're continuing to follow is that of outgoing Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. Before we get into a lot of this more in-depth discussion with myself and Rick Volbaum, I want to play this package from our outstanding, hardworking political reporter, Doug Reardon, who had an exclusive one-on-one interview with Marjorie Taylor Greene that we aired earlier this week. This came after her very nationally followed interview on CBS's 60 Minutes on Sunday. Here's Doug's report.
And Greene said she told President Donald Trump about those threats, and he did get back to her, but she wouldn't even tell me what he said. She only said his response was unspeakable. And really, Greene did not hold back. When I asked her who was to blame for these recent scares, she said it was President Trump, fully.
So this is just the conduct that is extremely unbecoming of the President of the United States.
After years of hurling insults and firebrand politics, Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene tells me being on the other end of it is no fun at all.
I don't want to have anything to do with that anymore, because I have seen firsthand over the past 5 years the horrific results of it.
773. That's the amount of death threats Greene says her office has received since she took office in January of 2021. And that doesn't even include the multitude of letters and swatting and doxing calls
this is not good.
Made to Greene's home here in Georgia. You think that some of the things that you said in the past may have led to some of this as well?
I think it's everyone have led to it. I think it's both sides. And I'm talking about this a lot. The toxic culture of politics has become extreme, and it's become extreme for both sides of the aisle.
Greene resigned last month amid a very public feud with her once close ally, President Donald Trump. Online, Trump calling Greene a traitor, and Greene thinks she knows why.
Basically, when it came down to the president calling me a traitor, because I stood with women, the Epstein survivors, that's really been shocking.
Greene was one of only 4 Republicans in the House to vote to release documents linked to late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, an effort Trump had tried to stymie for weeks. But was there something that you saw in there that made it important for you to, bring it to this level?
It was purely that, standing with women who were victimized, raped, and trafficked. And that's just the right thing to do. I didn't need to see a single thing in a file or read anything that was confidential before that to make that decision.
Greene tells me she's not sure what's next for her. She's already ruled out a run for Georgia governor, U.S. Senate, and says she has no plans to run for president in 2028. It could be a new leaf now for a fixture of modern Georgia politics. If you could go back and do it all over again, would you still support Donald Trump?
I will say I'm very happy that we won the election in 2024. However, I can easily tell you that the President of the United States should never, ever call someone like me who fought for him so hard a traitor. And a traitor is a serious word.
And as for the race to fill Greene's seat, we asked, but she does not plan on making an endorsement in that election.
Rick, one of the most followed issues on our YouTube channel for On the Record with Atlanta News First has been our ongoing coverage of Marjorie Taylor Greene's sudden, shocking resignation from Congress that she made Friday a couple of weeks ago that really necessitated us coming in and really wanting to be on top of the issue. We actually revamped and redid an entire episode of On the Record, which aired on Sunday at 11 a.m., talking about her resignation. We followed up a week later. You and I had a discussion that was very heavily watched on YouTube about who would possibly be replacing her in Congress. We have a number of candidates who have already jumped into the race, including on Monday, someone who could arguably be considered the most controversial candidate that we've seen so far, that being State Senator Fulton Moore. Now, you and I will recall that earlier this year, Senator Moore wound up getting arrested outside the House chambers where he was attempting to enter to attend Governor Brian Kemp's annual State of the State speech or address, which he was constitutionally allowed to do. However, he attempted to violate an order from current House Speaker John Burns that prohibited the senator from entering the chambers. How did all this come about?
Well, Fulton Moore is very much cut from the same cloth as Marjorie Taylor Greene. If you look at him and his record, and you mentioned, of course, that famous scene outside the chambers for the governor's speech earlier in the year, where he was literally put on the ground, and of course those were images that were broadcast all over the media.
By some very large Georgia state troopers, as I recall.
Exactly, state troopers who were carrying out the wishes of the House Speaker, who, as you mentioned, had barred him from coming in because of statements that he had made about the former Speaker, John Ralston, the late Speaker who had died. Fulton Moore came out and called him a corrupt politician. That upset Burns to the point where he barred him from entering the chamber to listen to Governor Kemp's speech. So there are those images of Fulton Moore, which, again, to his fans and supporters, show his willingness to take positions that are difficult, to try to push the envelope, which is something that voters in the 14th district seem to like, having elected and re-elected Marjorie Taylor Greene for several terms. And so I think that he is really kind of going for that audience, that group of voters in the district who he knows are sort of interested in that brand of politics. But there are other Republicans who have announced, and there is a Democrat who has announced as well. In fact, it's the Democrat who ran against Marjorie Taylor Greene in the last election cycle, a retired brigadier general in the U.S. military, Sean Harris, with whom we'll be speaking very soon. We plan on speaking to all of these candidates for the Georgia 14 special election between now and when that election takes place. The date still to be determined. But Colton Moore is not alone on the Republican side. He's running with certain people who have declared Jim Tully as someone, Star Black, Christian Hurd. It's just some of the names of local Republicans from the northwest corner of the state who have announced their intention to run in the special election to replace Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, we have to mention, whoever wins that special election will then have to run again in a primary in order to run in the general election in November. So we're looking at potentially a lot of different elections for people who live in Georgia 14, having to go to the polls again and again to select the new member of Congress to represent that district. But it promises to be a very lively race. Marjorie Taylor Greene, whom we just heard from, has said that she will not be endorsing anyone in this race. She's going to hang back and let it all play out. So we'll see.
Well, we don't like to engage in hyperbole or overstatement, but I can feel pretty confident in saying that the special election for Georgia 14 is going to be one of the most watched, if not the most watched, congressional special election whenever it is called in the country. It is a very solid Republican district. Whether or not Democrat Sean Harris, I recall another Democrat who has run against Marjorie Taylor Greene in the past. We have not heard from him. Marcus Flowers, whether or not he will get in. But it is a fairly safe Republican district. I have read reports where Democrats are hopeful that perhaps with a fractured number or a high number of GOP contenders, whether or not that helps Democrats' chances of perhaps making inroads in the district, we'll see. But, you know, we're still waiting on Governor Brian Kemp and the Secretary of State to set a special election date, perhaps in March, for whenever qualifying would be most appropriate. So we're looking at a special election with a crowded special election, perhaps a runoff. That's 2 elections. We have a primary in May, perhaps a runoff shortly after that, and then a general election. That's 5 elections for that single district, not counting a possible runoff after the general election in November.
That's right.
We're asking a lot of the voters at the 14th.
We certainly are, but I think that they will be very proud to head to the polls, knowing, as you said, that really the eyes of the nation are going to be on Georgia and the northwest corner in particular of our state, because this is Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat. Who's going to replace her will obviously garner a lot of media attention nationally, mainly because of the name that she made for herself when she served in Congress and continues to serve at least for another several weeks. So there'll be that. But there's also, of course, the specter of a midterm election where, traditionally speaking, and we've talked about this, the party in power, the party that holds the White House, this year the Republican Party, traditionally does poorly in the midterm elections, loses seats. And we've already seen in a number of special elections and in some elections that took place in November where Democrats have either won seats and offices that were previously held by Republicans or have come much closer to winning than they had in previous contests. So you look at the margins of victory. Okay, so sure, a Republican won, but at least he didn't do anywhere nearly as well as a Republican did the last time around. And a lot of these are districts that are solidly Trump supporting districts, where the president did very well in the election last year, but where the Republican candidates this time around in this election cycle are not doing as well. And so that will be another thing to look out for as we head into first this special election and then, of course, the primaries and the general election for not just Georgia 14, but for every congressional district in our state and in all 50 states.
Well, and in all 50 states, we obviously every 2 years, every member of the U.S. House of Representatives runs for election or re-election if they so choose.
That's right.
Or if someone is stepping down, as in the case of Marjorie Taylor Greene, it will be an open seat. But Georgia continues to be one of the nation's premier battleground states for politics and elections, and we will continue to follow all of these developments here on Atlanta News First. Reminder to watch On the Record with Atlanta News First, hosted by Rick Folbaum and Doug Reardon, every Sunday morning at 11 a.m. A reminder, you can also watch and listen to On the Record on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, as well as wherever you get your favorite podcast on your favorite podcasting platform.
Thank you for watching ANF Plus. For more breaking news, live coverage, and your community stories, download the Atlanta News First app. You can also watch us on YouTube, Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. To join the conversation on YouTube Live, visit our channel and hit subscribe. You can also listen to the Atlanta News First podcast by searching Atlanta News First on your preferred listening platform.